Hello my crochet friends, this is Sarah from Ned and Mimi, and in this video we are going to work part 1 of the Dream Catcher cardigan, and this first part is the lovely center square motif that you can see here. Now, if you are anything like me, you probably just want to get crocheting straight away, but before we get started, there are just a few important things that we need to cover. So first up is a look at our materials. For this project, you will need a weight 5 or a bulky weight yarn and a 6.5mm crochet hook. Now, if you find that you need to use a different sized hook in order to match the gauge in the pattern, then that is absolutely fine. So it's more important to match the gauge in the pattern than to follow exactly the same size hook that I have used. Now, I love this pattern so much, I have already made it in 3 different colours using 3 different yarns, and all of these are linked below, and they're also listed in the written pattern, as well as some other alternatives that have different fibre contents. So the 3 yarns that I have used have different fibres. The Fluffy Day and the Paint Box Simply Chunky are both acrylic yarns, and the Katia Merino is 50% acrylic and 50% wool. So whatever your preferences are, I think you will find something out there that suits you. So then, once you have sorted your materials, the next thing you are going to need is the crochet pattern. So this pattern is written for 4 different sizes, from extra small up to 5x, and you are going to need the written pattern to hand in order to be able to follow along with the videos. So the pattern is available for free on my website nedandmimi.com, and you also have the option to purchase the print friendly PDF, which has some extra stitch diagrams and other resources in there too. I have linked to all of these different options below, so do make sure to grab the pattern so that you can follow along with me for whatever size you are making. And I also recommend that before you start, you go through the pattern and highlight all of the sections and rows and stitch counts for your particular size, and I promise this will make your life much easier. Now, the last bit of housekeeping before we get started. So I just want to take a minute to go through the construction of this cardigan, as it might be a little bit different to other projects that you have come across. So the basis for this entire project is a rectangle, which we are going to work from the center out. So the first section, and the one that we're going to cover in this video, is the center square. We're going to start off with this lovely lacy motif here, working from the inside out, and then we're going to add some double crochet rounds, and the number of rounds that you need will depend on the size that you are making. So once your square is made, the next step is to turn that square into a rectangle, and this is where things get a little interesting. So we're going to rotate the square so that it looks like a diamond. We'll add some width on the right and left hand sides, and the amount that you're going to add at each side again is going to depend on the size that you're making. And then finally we will fill in the 4 triangles here at each corner until we are left with a rectangle. And then finally the assembly step. So this is quite easy. We'll fold in each corner and seam the edges together to create the armholes. Then we will add some sleeves and a collar, and we will be good to go. So now, without further ado, let us get started on our center square. So we are going to begin with a magic loop. So I'm going to do that by just wrapping the tail of the yarn over my hand towards me, so the tail is facing towards me. Then I'll insert my hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, take my hand out, and there we go. So that is my magic loop made. So I'm just going to start working into that loop and also working over that tail at the same time. So for round 1, I'm going to chain 3, and that does count as double crochet, and then I am going to work 15 more double crochets into this circle, and I'll have a total of 16 stitches in this first round. Okay, so that is round 1 done. Now all I'm going to do is just pull on that tail to close up the loop. So pull it nice and tight. So now there's just one step left to finish this round, and that is to join with a slip stitch to the first chain 3. So if you have a quick look here, we have our 1, 2, third chain. So we're going to join to that third chain. And there we go. Okay, so that is the first round done. Now, if you want, you can keep working over your tail here, but I think I'm going to leave it and I'm going to weave it in later on because I just will feel like it's more secure and I'll feel a bit better about it that way. So let's get straight into round 2 now. So this is a super easy round. We're going to chain 3 to start again. So that counts as a double crochet. And now we're going to do an extra chain. So we have 4 chains at the start of this round, and this counts as a double crochet and a chain. Then we're going to double crochet in the next stitch. So just be careful here that you don't work in to that place that you joined to, because our starting chain does count as a stitch. So now I'm going to chain 1 again, and then just continue to repeat that pattern, double crochet, chain 1 all the way back to the start. Okay, so here I am, almost back to the start. So I've just finished with a chain, and now I need to join again at the end of this round. So what we're going to do is find the third chain from that starting chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, and we'll join in to that one. Okay, so that is round 2 done. So to begin round 3, we need to get our hook into a slightly different position to begin these stitches. So what I'm going to do is just do another slip stitch into that chain 1 space. So for this round, I want to work into these chain spaces. So I need to get my hook into a starting position in the chain space. So that's why I do that extra slip stitch there. So let's go ahead. We are going to chain 2 to start. That chain 2 does not count as a stitch, so it's a little bit different to the previous rounds where the chain 3 did count as a stitch. And then I'm going to do a double crochet cluster into this first chain space. Now this cluster only has 2 parts to it, whereas the subsequent ones are going to have 3, but don't worry, this will be much clearer once we start doing it. So to do my cluster, I'm going to yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So that is the start of our cluster. Then I'm going to just repeat that once more. We'll yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops again. So now I have 3 loops left on my hook, and I'm just going to yarn over, pull through all 3 loops, and that is my cluster done. So now let's move on to the next chain space. So to get there, we're going to do a chain 2. And now I'm going to work a 3 double crochet cluster. So it's basically just repeating the steps that we did there, except I'm going to repeat them 3 times instead of 2. So we'll yarn over, insert our hook into the chain space, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, and then do that twice more. So now I'm left with 4 loops on my hook. So I'll just yarn over, pull through all 4, and that's my cluster done. So now I just need to repeat that pattern all the way around again. So we'll just chain 2 and work our next cluster, and so on until we get back to the start. Alright, so nearly back to the start of round 3. We just have to join again with the slip stitch as we did previously. Now this one is a little bit different, this join, because rather than joining to the chain, we're going to join to the top of that very first cluster. And if you'll remember, that chain 2 did not count as a stitch, so that's why we are not joining to that one. So let's go ahead now and just slip stitch to the top of that cluster. And that's round 3 done. Okay, so moving straight along to round 4. Now we are going to begin round 4 similarly to round 3. We're going to slip stitch to that chain space. So now we're in a good starting position for round 4. This round is going to be a V-stitch round. So again, we'll begin with chain 3. That does count as a stitch. And now one more chain, which counts as a regular chain. And then I'm going to just double crochet into that same chain space, and that's my first V-stitch done. So now we're going to chain 1, V-stitch in the next, chain space, so double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then chain 1 to get to the next space. And that's it. So for this round again, we're just going to repeat our V-stitch pattern and our chain 1 all the way around. Alright, so almost back to the start again, just need to do our join. So if you'll remember, that chain 3 does count as a stitch, so we need to join to the third of that chain. So in we go there. And we have round 4 complete. So let's get started with round 5. Now this round is going to be a little bit similar to round 3 in that we are going to work some double crochet clusters. However, in this round we are also going to start shaping our corners. So we're going to very gently start to turn our circle into a square. So for this round you are going to need your stitch markers, your 4 stitch markers, to be able to mark out the corners. So you can probably guess what our first step here is going to be, and that is to do a slip stitch into the next chain space to get us into a good starting position. So we're going to begin with a chain 2, and that does not count as a stitch, and then we'll do a 2 double crochet cluster in that same chain space. Now we're going to make our first corner here, so we're going to chain 3 and then do a 3 double crochet cluster into the next chain space. Alright, so let's mark that first corner there. So we can just leave that in place. Our next step is to chain 2 and then do a double crochet cluster, 3 double crochet cluster in the next chain space. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just chain 1 and then do another double crochet cluster. And we're going to repeat that chain 1 cluster pattern until we have a total of 7 clusters here after the corner. Okay, so now we have our corner, then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clusters. So now time to shape our next corner. So to do that, we're going to chain 2, do our double crochet cluster in here, chain 3 to create the corner, another double crochet cluster, chain 2 and another cluster, and now let's just stop for a second and mark that corner as well. So basically what we are doing here is creating our 2 corners like so, and on either side of the corner we're going to have a double crochet cluster, then we're going to have a chain 2, then we're going to have our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clusters and another chain 2. So there is a little bit more concentration, a little bit more work required for this round, but just follow along with the pattern, follow along with the stitch chart, and just keep an eye on your stitch count to make sure at the end of the round you have the correct count. So let's keep going now. So we've just done that corner, we have our chain 2, our double crochet, and our double crochet cluster, I should say, and now we're just going to chain 1 and work some more clusters again until we have 7 after that last corner. Alright, so time to start our 3rd corner. So we're going to chain 2 and make a cluster. Now chain 3 to make the corner. Chain 2 again, and we'll do our next cluster. And then of course marking that corner as well. Okay, so I'm just going to repeat that same sequence until we get to our 4th corner, and then continue on as per the pattern until we get back to the start. Okay, so here we are back at the start of our round. So just one step left. Now, one thing to be careful of here is that at the end of this round, you don't chain one, you actually chain two. So if you remember, all of our other corners have our chain 3 for the corner and then a chain 2 on either side. So that's what we need to do there as well. So let's just chain 2 and then we're going to join to the top of that first cluster. And that is round 5 done. So you can start to see that our circle is gently turning into a square, and round 6 is the round where we will complete that process. So after round 6 we're going to have a square. Okay, so on to round 6. So as always, we're going to join into that chain space with a slip stitch. So this round is a little bit more tricky than the previous ones, but again, just follow along with the pattern and take your time and you'll be absolutely fine. So we're going to begin with a chain 4 here because we want this to count as a treble crochet. So it's quite a tall stitch in the corner. Now we're also going to chain 3 because that is going to count as our chain 3 of the corner stitch. So if we bring it around here like so, that is what that stitch is going to look like. Now if you like here, you can grab a stitch marker and just mark the 4th of that chain. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're just going to mark that because that is where we are going to join to when we get back to the start. So you don't have to do this, but it's just an extra little step that might make your life a little bit easier. Okay, so let's complete that corner now by working. Actually, we can pop out the stitch marker. So we're going to work a treble crochet. So yarning over twice there and just completing the stitch as normal. Chain 1 and then another treble into that same chain space. Alright, so that chain 3 is our corner. And what we're going to do when we get back to the start is add another treble crochet here just to match these two. So I know it probably looks a little bit strange now and it's a bit tricky to see how it's actually going to work out, but don't worry, it will, I promise. Okay, so let's just mark that corner as well. Alright, so now let's keep going. We are going to chain 1. We're going to do a double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1 again, half double crochet in the next, chain 1, and then we're going to do a single crochet in the next stitch. And if we just stop there for a second, you can see that what we're doing is increasing the height here on the corners, but then decreasing it as we go along. So by the time we are finished, we're not going to have a circle anymore, we're going to have a square. So now I'm going to chain 1 again, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. So now we need to start increasing the height before we get to the next corner. So we're going to chain 1, half double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, and now we're at the corner. So let's pop out that stitch marker again. So for our corner, I'm going to treble crochet, chain 1 and treble crochet. So there's a lot happening in this corner stitch. Now I'm going to chain 3 to make the corner and then do our treble crochet V-stitch, you could call it actually. So it's treble crochet separated by chain 1 all into the same space. Okay, so that is corner 2 done. So let's just pop in our stitch marker there for that. So now I'm basically just going to repeat that same sequence. So starting here from the chain 1 and the double crochet, chain 1, half double, then our 3 singles, and the same on the other side. So we're just going to repeat that for this edge, then repeat it for this one, and then repeat it for this one until we get back to the start. So let me just go ahead with that now. Alrighty, so I'm almost back to the start of that round. So I have just done a double crochet in a chain, and now I need to complete that treble crochet V-stitch. Let me just move that out of the way there. So we have our V here, and we have half a V here, so I need to fill in this bit. So what I'm going to do is just do my 2 yarn overs, and then I'm going to go into this first chain space again. So working over that slip stitch that we used to join at the very start of the round, and just making our treble crochet sort of on top of that. And now the last thing is to chain 1 and then join. So you can either count 1, 2, 3, 4 for that starting chain there, or just slip stitch into the marked stitch. Okay, so that is round 6 done, and now we have our square, and I know it's looking a little bit higgledy-piggledy, but it's going to turn into a much more even square as we keep going, and then you also have the option of blocking your work at the end to make it nice and neat. Okay, so let us get on with round 7 now. So this round is going to start a little bit differently because I do need to be in a slightly different starting position for this round. And the reason is that we're going to be turning our work after the end of this round and working the rest of the square in turned rounds. So what I need to do here is actually do 2 slip stitches into this corner. So if you want, you might find it easier, rather than going into the chain space, you could just kind of go in to those chains directly, and it's just going to keep the hook in a better position. So I've just done 2 slip stitches along those chains, and now I'm kind of over at the left hand side here, and I'm going to start working down that edge first. So this round is going to be all double crochets, so I'm going to begin with a chain 3, and that counts as a double crochet. Let me just pop out my stitch marker. And now I'm going to do 1 more double crochet into that same corner space. Okay, so that is just our first 2 stitches. Now I'm going to just simply double crochet all along the edge until I come to the next corner. So I'll be working 1 double crochet for each stitch, and then 1 double crochet in each chain 1 space as well. So this can be a little bit tricky actually. Sometimes it's difficult to see where you need to insert your hook, so just keep an eye on your stitch count and make sure that you have 1 double crochet for each stitch and each space. Alrighty, so here I am at the corner. I have my edge with all my double crochets, and now I'm just going to work into that corner. So I can pop out the stitch marker, and actually from this point on you might not even need the stitch markers anymore. Just keep them if you like, but you don't absolutely need them. So I'm going to do 2 double crochets in here, then a chain 3 for my corner space, and 2 double crochets on the other side as well. And then all I need to do is just simply repeat that sequence all the way back to the start. So we're going to double crochet all the way along here, work our corner, double crochet along this edge, work our corner, and then double crochet until we get back to the start, and then I'll just show you how we're going to finish that off. So away we go. Alrighty, so I am almost back to the start. So I just wanted to pause here because the last few stitches are a little bit tricky. So I have worked my double crochet into this chain one space here in between the two trebles. But this treble actually, if you remember, is a chain 4. So it can be a teeny weeny bit tricky to work into. So just make sure that you don't miss working into the top of that stitch. So actually what you're doing is working into the slip stitch where you joined at the end of round 6. So just wanted to show you that because it can be a tiny bit tricky. And now the last thing is to complete our corner here. So let's just have a quick look at this one. So we have our 2 double crochets, chain 3, 2 double crochets, and that means over here we need to have the same. So we've already done 2 double crochets at the start of the round. So now to finish it, we need to do 2 double crochets into that chain, same chain space. So working over those slip stitches, you'll remember those, and then do a chain 3 to complete the corner. And again, that chain 3 at the start counted as a stitch, so we're going to slip stitch to that to join. And there we go, so that is round 7 done. Now I know all of this slip stitching and everything might seem a little bit complicated, but actually if we have a look at our square, we can see that our seam is running diagonal up along this corner, and it's actually quite difficult to see the difference between a regular corner where there's no seam, no start and end of a round, and the line here. So that is why we are doing those slip stitches, to get us into a good position for each corner so that our seam is as invisible as we can possibly make it. So let us get on to round 8 now. So the good news is that round 8 is going to be the same as round 7. We're just going to be double crocheting all the way around and working our corners. The tricky bit is that we are going to have to turn our work. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we'll just flip our work over. So now you are looking at the back of that center square. So as we're on 7, we're going to do 2 slip stitches at the start of this round. So we just work them into the chain in the corner like so. And now we're ready to go. So it's exactly the same as round 7. So we're going to start with a chain 3. That counts as a double crochet, and then work our double crochet into the corner space. And now I'm just going to keep going in exactly the same manner as round 7. So we'll just be double crocheting all the way along here, work our corner, double crochet, and so on all the way back to the start. And then at the end of round 8, we're going to be turning again. So I think once you get your head around these extra slip stitches at the start, just to get the hook into a good position, you'll be flying it. So I know it does seem a little bit complicated, but I promise it is worth it. So let me just fly around with round 8, and then I will just talk about how we are going to complete this center square. Okay, so I'm almost back to the start for round 8, and I just wanted to show you how to finish off this round. It's exactly the same as round 7, but I know it can be a little bit tricky, so I just wanted to go through it again. So basically here I have my starting chain 3 from round 7, so I am going to make sure that I double crochet into the top of that, and then I also need to work 2 more double crochets into that first chain space. So again, working over the slip stitches, so I'm closing them in our double crochet, and there are the 2 stitches done. So now I just need to chain 3 to finish the corner and join, and that's round 8. So that was done looking at the wrong side. So now if we just flip over again, we're ready to go on to round 9. So now all we have to do is repeat round 8 for a number of rounds, and the number does depend on the size that you are making, so please do look at the pattern for that and see how many rounds you need to work. So I am going to go ahead now and work my repeats of round 8, and I will see you back here very, very soon. Okay, so I have finished my center square. Now, depending on the size that you are making, you may have a different number of double crochet rows here than me, and that is absolutely fine. Just follow the pattern for whatever size you are doing. So now we are ready to move on to the next section of the pattern, and that will be turning our square into a rectangle. So for now, I am going to leave you here, and then when you're ready, you can join me in part 2 of this video series. And of course, in the meantime, if you do have a second to like this video and subscribe, that would be absolutely amazing. So I will see you soon for part 2, and until then, happy crocheting and take care.